And I just almost want them to stop. We've had enough. The reboot era is ending. It's done. We want new stuff. We're all, in a way, rebooting things anyway when we rewatch. The rewatch era is in, so the reboot era has to be out.
Hello, clowns.
I'm Ummi.
I'm Yu Chen, and we're the hosts of Clown Vibes Podcast.
We're two best friends who are chronically online and get together weekly to laugh and discuss all the clown behavior we see on the internet.
And there's so much.
Truly so much.
We're so glad to have you here to clown around with us, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey, clowns! Happy Clown Day. It's Tuesday for us. A true clown day. I think Tuesday's the most clown day of the week. What do you think?
Really? I feel like Wednesdays are clown days for me. I really dislike hump days. I don't know why. It just feels like honestly, I feel like on Wednesdays I always think I should have gotten more stuff done by then.
Yeah.
But then Wednesday comes along and then Thursday I'm just like, well, it's almost the weekend, so I just don't do it. And then I wait until Monday to do it. And it's just a never-ending cycle of me not doing stuff.
Fair enough. And it's fine. I think Wednesdays are not a clown day for me because it just feels fun. It's like hump day, only 2 more days left. That seems way more achievable. On Tuesday, you're just like, damn, this whole week is left still. Anyways, I have some tragic news. My Netflix kicked me out again. I had it for a solid 2 weeks. It's gone again.
Wait, how did you get Netflix back? Because last time we talked about this, it was in New York. That was a while ago. But you were like, I can't do it. How did you get around it?
So I came home and it was magically back. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's because my parents came and they probably signed in or whatever. Yeah. And I had it until yesterday when it, I guess, realized that I'm not the household leader or whatever the fuck they want from me.
So
and
how are you watching Love is Blind?
Well, I mean, I watched last week's over the weekend, but this week I'll have to go to Pooja's apartment and watch on her illegal sync. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out.
Wait, so how is Keishan getting Netflix is the question.
He's not. He said that he just torrents everything.
Oh.
Maybe we have to cut this part. No, dude, it's our God-given right to account share. Like, what else is given to us in this world besides that ability?
The only reason why you should cut someone out from your account sharing is if you go through a dramatic friendship breakup or a dramatic relationship breakup. If we just switch this model, people won't understand how dramatic it is to cut someone off their account share.
I know. And I know people who are still using their ex-boyfriend's accounts. It's our purpose in life to be chaotic, mess with people's Netflix, and get these accounts first free via scamming your friends.
Something really triggered me when we started talking about shared accounts and ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends. Do you feel a sense of dread each time you start dating someone new and you see their Netflix login for the first time and you're getting the first glimpse of everyone that they share their account with?
Oh yeah.
It gives me anxiety because you're exposed to too much information, too much personal information.
Yeah.
All you have is the names of everyone, but you're what is this guy?
You don't know who they are.
You don't know them, and you have no context. And so the first time I saw Nico's, it was his and this woman named Irene, and I was like, Irene, who is this? Is this another ex-girlfriend situation? I don't have the context for this. It's his mom.
Yeah, I think you should just mentally for yourself always assume it's family. Anyways, but since I don't have Netflix, I have been watching How I Met Your Father, the How I Met Your Mother reboot. That just got canceled. So I'm also like why continue?
Well, okay. So, did you watch all seasons of How I Met Your Mother? And did you watch How I Met Your Father?
I did watch How I Met Your Mother, and I don't know if I ever finished. I did really like it for a while, but I really can't say whether I finished or not. And I have watched all of How I Met Your Father, except I'm still on this current last season, whatever. And it's okay. It's like a good time pass.
So, I started watching it. Maybe I started watching it because you told me to watch it. I feel like everything
Mm-hmm.
Hilary Duff does is just a very feel good show. Like, I
Yeah,
hear How I Met Your Mother, How I Met Your Father. I always get the two mixed up, like, which is which.
I know. Me too. Me too. That's why I kind of paused because I was like, wait, which one is she meeting? Hillary is meeting. Kids are meeting her father. Whatever.
Her
Anyway,
father, no, her husband, their father.
her husband, their father.
But it was like a bit too sitcom-y for me, which is like it's the vibe, so
Yeah,
that's up. But I am surprised that it lasted so long because I feel like usually reboots do not last as long as they like would like to. Like usually it's like 2 or 3
yeah.
seasons. So how many seasons has it been?
I think it's on 3. So it's the norm. Yeah, I think what also didn't help is someone was mad, and I think it was John Mulaney. I don't know why that name is like what I associate with who exposed who the father is. Like everyone knows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't think it was just that, but like everyone one knows who the father is, and then two, it is really sitcom-y, and there's like that's the point of it, but that's not the norm right now. And people aren't used to that anymore like they were whenever How I Met Your Mother came out. So my thoughts or my conclusion or my assumption is that that's why it got canceled.
Got it. I just feel like with reboots, there's always like a time period where it's just like, all right, time to wrap it up. We've milked the cow for as long as we can.
Yeah, this one is like this could go on forever, right? Because it's like How I Met Your Mother had what, nine
Yeah, it was
seasons, eight
so
seasons, like
long.
something crazy. It went on forever. This one could have also gone on forever because at the end of the day, it's just like a story about a friend group, and at some point they can reveal who the father is, but they don't have to anytime soon. But it's over now.
All right, well, this kind of leads us to our main topic of today, which is about TV, one of our favorite topics, but specifically, why are there so many reboots out here lately? Did you hear that The Office is rumored to come back as a reboot?
I did not. And how is that possible? Because didn't so many things age poorly? Like, isn't the show's concept not okay these days? You know what I mean?
Well, okay. I think the show's concept is that there's just a group of people working in the office. So it could work in today's world. But basically,
I
what made The
guess.
Office funny is all the inappropriate shit that would just like not fly in today's society. So I'm really curious as to like what this is going to look like. But like what surprised me was like The Office hasn't been off air for a very long time. Like why are we trying to revive it
Yeah.
so quickly? But I was kind of digging into it and it's just all rumors at the point. I think it's because it came out of like
Mm,
some interview about the writer's strike. And so I'm really curious to like who's going to sign on to do the show, if it's going to I bet it's going to like follow different characters. I hope it's not the same
yeah, it has to.
characters. I hope they've all
I
graduated.
think those people are
Yeah.
too big. Yeah. No, they're too big for it to come back to them. It would have to be a new
Yeah.
cast. What would be funny is if they did like a remote workers office. Actually, it would not be funny to watch, but it would be funny to just see everyone like FaceTiming their friends for the day and
I mean, I think that's
take
only
their dog
you.
out.
You know what would be actually an interesting concept if they do it kind of like a well, it is what was unique about The Office is it was like a documentary type style, but
Hmm.
a documentary type style for like remote workers. So like different cameras following people around in their
Mm.
bedroom in their pajamas. Like that'd be interesting.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
pitch this.
I would want to be in the writers' room for this. Um,
Yeah, for
Another
sure.
show that was announced is Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is going to be a Amazon Prime show.
TV
Mm-hmm.
show? Was it originally a TV show, then it became a movie, now it's back to a TV show, or was it only ever the movie and now it's going to be a TV show?
I want to say that it's always been just a movie, but you know what? I could be wrong because from like researching for this episode, I'm realizing that things that I thought were original are not original.
Yeah, they're original to our life.
Everything is just not original at this point.
Yeah.
But I saw, so originally it was going to be Childish Gambino, who's going to be the Mr. Smith, and then the woman who played
Mm-hmm.
Fleabag. But then
Mm-hmm.
she dropped out of the show and someone else came on. I forget
Why?
who. It was because of creative differences.
Okay.
It's interesting because, of course, they cast a diverse woman for the show. And I feel like that's like a hallmark of a 2020-esque reboot is you just recast white people with diverse characters.
Yeah, and think that's enough, but then never like fill the character
Yeah.
out.
Hint, hint, listen to the Summer I Turned Pretty episode that we did.
That wasn't a
It
reboot
wasn't, but
though.
it was,
That was just a
yeah.
book adaptation, but same vibe. Yeah, that's what they did to Gossip Girl.
And then the other news that I saw the other day was just that the iCarly reboot got canceled.
Oh
Got.
yeah,
I'm curious what Jeanette
sad.
Jeanette McCurdy, that's her name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinks of it getting
Mm-hmm.
canceled because she was just like not about it. In today's episode, we're going to be speaking about reboots in a few different ways. So I think there are a couple of different types of reboots. So one is like they're just remaking the show or the movie, like a pure just reboot. But there are also ones that are like prequels and sequels, which are just like time shifts, usually like the same characters or the same concept, but in a different time period. We're classifying all of these types as reboots.
Yes, reboots come in many forms, but generally they're all equally bad.
Okay, so I mean, why do we think that reboots are having such a resurgence right now?
I think like there's a big nostalgia movement in general right now, and I don't know if that's something that happens frequently, but you know, like the 90s is so popular, like Y2K, and in a way, like millennials are becoming the target audience for networks. And what is more millennial than rebooting Full House? You know, like let's just reboot things that they've already seen and they previously liked and hope for the best. Like they think this is just the way to make like easy money, and I hope by now they've realized it's not.
Well, okay. So do we think this is like a capitalism driven concept, or do you think people are actually just like running out of ideas?
I think it's capitalism driven. I don't think people are running out of ideas. I feel like there are good scripts out there, but no one's willing to like make bets anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was like doing some research about this, reboots are always like the safer bet, just because they have
Yeah,
a kind of like built-in
a built-in
audience. Yeah.
audience.
I think the term that they call it is a pre-sold property. So it's like very much like a real estate term, which is like
Okay.
interesting to use that in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely like reboots are a safe bet. But then I'm just like, shouldn't you guys learn that like reboots just never have the longevity of like an original concept?
Yeah, I just feel like they haven't learned that yet. And can you think of a reboot that was actually successful? The only one I can think of was 90210. But that was in like the teen drama era. So I think it also helped that. That also helped. But besides that, I literally can't think of a good reboot.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it like depends on the time period. Reboots are not unique to the 2000s. I feel like every decade
Yeah.
there's always like a uptick in reboots in a specific year or
Mhm.
two, and I feel like we're in that year right now. But I was reading this interesting article. I think it was from, I forget which article it was, but they were saying how usually during times of like economic uncertainty, that's when reboots start to see like an uptick.
Mm.
So like the
Yeah.
2008 financial crisis was one of them. I wonder what came out of the 2008 financial crisis. Was it Gossip Girl? Wait, but Gossip Girl wasn't a reboot. What was 90210
No,
came
it was a
around at the
book
same time.
adaptation. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That one. I can't think of what else. I can't think of what else also because we were not in our reboot era. Like we didn't care about reboots when we were 14, you
We didn't
know?
even know what a reboot was.
Yeah. So no idea what came out of that time. What has been your favorite reboot?
I'm typically not a fan of reboots. I
Mhm.
think the second that I
Okay, gun to head. If you had to choose one.
probably 90210, but here's the psychological aspect of like a reboot that I think like for whatever studio is listening, they're listening to Cloud Vibes.
None.
You can, I almost feel like you have to brand the reboot as its own thing. Like it cannot be branded as a reboot
Mhm.
because the second that a reboot comes out, like it's always going to be compared to the original. And I think the successful part about 90210 is that the target audience for 90210 was different from the original.
Yeah. They did not want that same, or they didn't care about that same audience who had grown up watching it. It was like basically trying to integrate a new generation into the quote unquote 90210 world.
Exactly.
That's true. You know what I do think has been surprisingly good though? Apparently, not that I've seen it, but I have read a lot of stuff about the iCarly reboot, so I think it was pretty successful, and I'm confused, I guess, why they canceled it.
Mm.
And do I think that because my little bubble of Twitter thinks that? Probably, but I don't know. It seemed like it was a bigger hit than some of the other ones.
I think there are two different types of reboots.
Okay.
One where
Mm-hmm.
reboots can go down the path of nostalgia. So to your point, like we're in such like a nostalgic place right now in our world. And then two
Yeah.
is what I call like deconstruction. So it's like basically taking the concept of what like the original
Mm-hmm.
concept was, but then because it hasn't aged well or because it was like a bit controversial, basically kind of taking that and like running with it in the opposite direction.
Okay.
And both, I think, are very dangerous paths to walk down because,
Yeah.
anyways, like my whole POV is like reboots are very hard to be successful. Like, in my opinion, you will never get like
For sure.
a Game of Thrones, a Harry Potter esque like obsession or like a Succession obsession with a reboot.
Yeah. No way. Because you're almost setting yourself up for failure because there's always going to be a preconceived like expectation for the reboot and you're not going to be able to please these people as a collective.
Exactly. Okay, so the first half, nostalgia. We're playing into like the nostalgic feeling of people watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like they're generally trying to target the same demographic that watched it and loved the show at the
Yeah.
beginning. So, for example, remember when Lizzie McGuire was going to reboot, but then they canceled the show?
Yeah. I think that was almost better press than had they have done the show.
Oh, yeah. There was so much hype.
I was just thinking, like, had that show come to air, would we have liked it? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the show was going to be like, but
Probably not.
this is better for Lizzie McGuire to have not because it still can be like this beloved show rather than us like criticizing the reboot.
Yeah, so I think this is where reboots kind of fall off the line here is like something like a Disney or like a Hulu, which is owned by Disney, when they typically do like a reboot of a children's show, they want to show the person as like grown up, but then they're like
Mhm.
limited and restricted by their brand to like fully show what an adult life
Yeah.
is going to look like. And I think that was the issue that Hilary Duff had with the reboot,
Yeah, it
is
was.
like this person is not really an adult in the way that they've written her. And I think that's
Mhm.
like really hard, because do people actually want that adult version of Lizzie McGuire, that real life adult
I don't
version?
know.
I don't know, because it like ruins
Yeah.
like the bubble that we lived in while kind of watching that show. And a lot of that stuff didn't age well, I
Yeah.
think.
Really? I haven't like seen Lizzie McGuire in so long. Like I can't even remember anything that about it. Like any specifics.
I feel like certain things that Matt did with his dad were probably
Ah.
like a little bit problematic, but it's just kind of like a sign of the times.
Mhm. Yeah, and like on the opposite side, if they had kept Lizzie in like the Disney bubble, would we have liked that as adults watching? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Like, in no way was that reboot going to be as good as the
Mm-hmm.
original. So it was a blessing.
What was an unfortunate turn of events is the Gossip Girl reboot. And it's
Mm-hmm.
rumored that it's rebooting again, but with the original
No. Oh,
cast.
yeah. I don't know. I would love it. I would love it selfishly, but I don't want it because I'm scared it's going to ruin the icon that is the original Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
And the like spin-off essentially reboot that they did on HBO Max, like it's not ruining the original Gossip Girl because it is fully removed from it besides the name and some similarities of the characters to the original characters, but having the same characters come back and like be in this world, we don't want to see adults fighting like they did in Gossip Girl. Like, what would it even be like? We're watching Chuck and Blair's child do what?
Yeah, I think what might have been interesting for Gossip Girl is if they did something similar to 90210, where they had like one or two from the original cast come back,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like
And it was
a
their children.
continuation of the story, but it's like their kids, so it's technically new cast members.
Yeah.
And like what I loved about the original Gossip Girl is that you see kind of like the storyline between Rufus and was Lily,
Lily.
and like a lot of the adults. A lot of the drama was focused on the adults
Yeah.
too. So there's like you're
Yeah.
shadowing multiple different types of audiences. But okay, so you watched the reboot, right, of Gossip Girl? I watched
I
it too.
did.
I watched. Did I even finish the season? I don't think I did. I think I stopped after like 3
I'm not sure.
episodes.
I watched all of it.
But what's your take on why this reboot failed?
It was just frankly not that interesting. Like week to week, it was not really grabbing my attention. And what I've noticed in my low attention span life currently is that a show has to be really, really good for me to watch week to week, or I have to really care about it for me to watch week to week. Otherwise, I need to binge it. And once the hype around the show is over, I'm going to forget to go back and binge it.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I feel like a reboot then is
Mm-hmm.
not set up for like that HBO model of like one episode a
Yeah.
week. There's just not enough anticipation for it.
Yeah. And they just didn't do this reboot that well. Like, I didn't really care about any of the characters particularly. I thought some of them were super annoying. I mean, I guess I thought people in the first one were annoying too, but I
But we
still
love
had
to
the
hate
like
them.
attachment. Yeah, but I didn't even care to hate these characters. It was just like, okay, like what? And some of the characters that were annoying are some of the characters that you were supposed to really like. So it was just not getting the reaction out of me that I think it tried to get. And I don't know why even I've blocked this out of my mind. The teachers are Gossip
Oh
Girl.
yeah,
Spoiler alert. And that itself
makes no
turned
sense.
me off from the get-go. Yeah, like it would just felt so nasty. And like throughout the series just felt really sick to watch these children do this because yes, okay, these kids are bratty, but you're literally ruining their lives for months at a time for what? They're not learning anything from you.
On to like other reasons why a nostalgic reboot would fail. I think prime example
Mm-hmm.
is Gilmore Girls. So
Oh,
yes, explain to the audience what the hell went wrong with Gilmore Girls.
it was just so chaotic and they had changed the like essence of the characters so drastically. Like Rory, actually when I go back and watch I hate Rory now, but in the reboot of Gilmore Girls, they made Rory so unrealistic. Like she was a pretty much goody two shoes girl. Like she did some chaotic things when she was growing up, whatever, but she was like a very straight and narrow child. And then all of a sudden, in this reboot, she's 30, she's flailing around. She has a boyfriend that she continuously forgets about, which is so which is a joke in the show and it's not that funny. Like I just didn't we're supposed to believe you're so smart. Like you're a genius is how they like portrayed you and now you're forgetting you have a boyfriend and you she's basically having an affair with Logan, which is not unlike her. She did have an affair when she was also a child, but I don't know. Like she didn't grow at all. Like they just fucked it up so much. There's scenes that are endless that could have been cut. And they dropped it in the middle of the night. And this was one of the first couple of reboots. I woke up in the middle of the night to watch this.
What?
And yeah, because it was like Thanksgiving break. I was like, what else am I doing? Nothing. Let me wake up at 3 a.m. or whatever time it came out. And I watched it and I was pissed. And it was just so stupid. It's like not something I can go back and rewatch. Sometimes I'll think about it because I'll see it on the banner and I'll be like, no way. This is so stupid. Like there's just nothing about it that was interesting enough to rewatch.
Yeah, I think this is like one of the hallmark examples of why a reboot would fail is if they use the same characters and the character adaptation in the reboot is just not on brand with what the character would
Mm-hmm.
do. I think like the mistake that the producers made here is like I think they're forgetting why Gilmore Girls like was so successful. And I literally forget
Yeah.
where I saw this or like read this, but the concept of Gilmore Girls wasn't like the plot wasn't really anything super interesting. I think what
No.
was great was like it was a digestible type of show where it was like the plot line was very very easy to follow in like very short snippets of each episode, and
Mm-hmm.
so you get that
Mm-hmm.
level of like satisfaction after like watching each episode. It's like a very easy watch, right? Like I didn't finish the entire
Yeah.
seasons, but I watched like a few seasons and like you more or less like can get the gist of what's going on. And it's just like an
Oh,
easy
for sure.
watch. Whereas I feel like
For
to your
sure.
point, the reboot was probably way too chaotic and didn't actually mirror
Yeah.
like the easygoing nature of the original.
Yeah. And what's weird is the writer of the reboot was the writer of the original. Like, I guess in that span when they weren't writing for Gilmore Girls, they forgot. I don't know. But it's also nice, like, Gilmore Girls has so many, like, funny, eccentric characters that, like, when you do tune back in, it's like, haha, this is funny. And I don't feel like the reboot had that even. Like, they were there, but just, I don't remember it being funny.
Yeah, and
It was sad.
I wonder how this so usually these types of reboots happen like when there's a time jump into the future. But do you think
Mm-hmm.
it says something about our society where like perhaps because you said it yourself that Rory cheated in the original and now she's still cheating
Yeah.
in like the reboot. Are we just
Mm-hmm.
harder on women, individuals, expecting them to be different as an adult when actually like how different are we as kids? I don't know. I would say I've
Yeah.
I've changed a lot, but
Okay, I don't think her cheating with Logan was that crazy. Like, had that happened, I would have been like, makes sense based on like how things turned out. It was the forgetting the boyfriend that really irked me.
That's just like a weird thing. I've never heard of this before.
It was such a weird thing. And it was just like, why? Like, did you have to be a double cheater? You know what I mean? And like, she did cheat when she was like 19. And like, she was very like in trouble with her. She got into a lot of trouble because of it. And so, in that way, I would think, oh, you have grown from this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it was just that overall her character had no growth.
Yeah. Well, you heard it on Clown Vibes. One success criteria that we must have for reboots is if you're going to use the same characters, you must show some level of brain character development. Okay, the second path that a reboot could typically take is what we call deconstruction. So, this is
Mm-hmm.
an example where I think The Office could fall down this path. Is the concept was a really good
Mm,
concept. The basic premise of the show was really successful, but there were so many problematic things that happened, maybe due to like the sign of the times that just didn't age well, and they want to
yeah.
take another shot at this concept. I think an example that I like we talked about in a previous podcast is Velma, which I think it's like very weird that they went down this path because
Mm-hmm.
I would say like Scooby Doo would actually go down the nostalgic path. Like they've done so many different types of
Yeah.
reboots with Scooby Doo. Like one type of reboot that I think will always more or less have like success in being like a successful reboot is cartoons. Like I feel like if it's a cartoon
Yeah.
and it's rebooted as a cartoon, it's more or less like going to be successful.
Yeah. I actually really liked the Scooby Doo
Yeah.
movies. They're
They're
fun to
fun to watch
watch.
because they're just like silly, good time, like nostalgic in a
Yeah.
way. But I don't know. Listen to which episode did we talk about Velma? Oh, the Ozempic. Yeah,
5.
the Ozempic
Yeah.
episode. But essentially, they took Velma and made her the main character. Everything's super raunchy. And I'm just like, what do you need to deconstruct from the original? In fact, I think you need to take the reboot and deconstruct that because it's way too like woke in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, they're like taking it too far. I just didn't understand that choice whatsoever. I'm not sure anyone watched it. It 100% got canceled, I assume. And it was a very big
It was a
flop.
very big flop. But that's the thing. I think like producers and directors in today's age while making films and movies, I think they see a cast of white people and they're like, uh-oh. So
Yeah.
every single new show like must have a person of color in it. But in this case, it just completely flopped. Like I almost
Yeah.
didn't feel like Velma's heritage was celebrated in a way that it should have been.
Yeah. Like not always see this, but I've seen this like take where it's basically like you should not change existing characters to diversify situations. You should just create new characters and create stories around them. Like, you know
Yes.
when they wanted to have the female James Bond, it's like, well, why does she need to be James Bond? She can
A
just
different
be
character.
a spy. You can literally create a spy movie with a woman. Like, why does she need to be James Bond?
Exactly.
And that's kind of like what is happening right now. They're not thinking about things that way. They're going down the path of least resistance, right? Like this is already a established world, established situation. Like we want to keep it, but have the best of both worlds. Like in a way, that's not working.
Did you ever watch Dynasty?
Yes,
Okay. I thought like I was like someone I
I
know
did.
watched Dynasty
I forgot
and
that.
I was
It
like
was me.
9 times out of 10 it's probably Emmy. But did you know that Dynasty was also a reboot?
I found that out like well into when I was watching it, but I have never seen the original, nor do I know anything about it. So I don't know how closely it followed the original.
I don't know.
Do
I
you?
don't know. I never watched like
Okay.
Dynasty or the original. But I just know that like when it was rebooting, everyone was like, "Oh, they like made is it Crystal the like the like mom,
The
yeah,
stepmom.
as like a Latina woman," and that was like, oh, like a really good change. But I feel like now if it was rebooted, it'd be just like everyone's diverse, but everyone would like keep the same
Yeah.
characters. And I think the character for Crystal really flopped. What did you think?
I think the character for Crystal really flopped, and also because I also think that because they changed actresses in the
That's
middle,
what I
which I
heard.
hate when they do
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I'm sure the original actress was like over this situation. I do think they diversified enough. Did they diversify the main cast, quote unquote, like the family? No. But everyone around them is pretty diverse. So maybe they did it well. But the character of Crystal did really flop. I wonder now what the original Crystal was like.
She
And
was
the thing
white.
is, like, yeah, but like, her character is just basically the stepmom who comes in that everyone thinks is the gold digger and that Fallon wants to like get rid of. Like, there's nothing in that situation that prevents her from being Latina. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, she could have still been and like had the same storyline as the first one, slightly different, but it didn't need to deviate so much. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure. Another example of a show going through the deconstruction route was Sex in the City. And I feel so passionate about this conversation just because Sex in the City did not need to change. And I almost feel like
Yeah.
instead of going through the deconstruction route, they should have just gone through with the nostalgic route. Okay, so the way that they did this reboot was they used the original character. So they got Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte.
Not Miranda, right?
Charlotte,
Or
yeah.
oh yeah, Samantha was the one who didn't
Samantha
come
didn't
back.
come back for
Okay.
like creative reasons, but I think she made like an appearance in the second season. And I get like what they were trying to do because a lot of things from the original Sex and the City did not age well. But I think what the
Mm-hmm.
producers forget is like there is a very nostalgic aspect of watching Sex in the City. Like if you ask someone like why they're watching Sex in the City, it's for like that nostalgic factor. Like sure things like did not age well, but it was like
Yeah.
revolutionary for its time. And in a way like a lot of the concepts are still very very relatable. The issue
Mm-hmm.
is I think they try to use the main cast but they change the characters also in a way that just didn't kind of like align with what the characters would have done. And
Mm.
so in a way they're like trying
Got
to
it.
deconstruct what like Carrie and like Miranda were doing like back in the 90s or early 2000s, but they made like Miranda treat Steve like shit and then like just run off with another person. And I feel like Miranda is a like she has issues as a person, like as a character, she has issues, but she would just have never done that to Steve, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're almost deconstructing it to the point where like the characters are not recognizable.
Don't make sense
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah. Dang. Yeah, I think anytime you're going to do a time jump, you really can't deviate that far. Like, when you do a time jump with the same characters, you can't really go down the deconstruction route. It's never going to
Okay, so
work.
with this reboot, they did add a bunch of diverse characters into the show. And these are new
Mm-hmm.
characters, like net new. But they did it in such like an
Okay.
obvious way that it felt like every single
Of course.
white main cast in the show had their own like minority people of color
That's fine.
best friend
Yeah, yeah.
to the point where it was just like so obvious.
Yeah. The thing that I think people forget is that, like, we all live in the world and, like, see things happen all the time. And when you do things like that, it's too obvious. Like, it is a big, like, yellow highlighter on the screen of just like what's going on. They need to do it in a more nuanced way.
What are some hallmarks of like signs that a reconstructed reboot would fail?
Changing the way the characters inherently were is always failure.
Yeah, I also think like deconstruction can go a bit too far. Like there's been so many critical reviews about how certain deconstructed reboots are just a bit way too woke. And I think we as a society are living in a very interesting time where like we do want change, but not too much. It's weird because do you remember when Endgame came out and there was this like montage of like female power? Did you watch Endgame? The Marvel movie?
Oh, yes, I did. But every time I watch those movies, as soon as I leave, I forget. I'm just looking at colors.
Well, there's a scene where like all the female superheroes are battling it out, which is it's really cool to see. But like the criticism from the audience is like that was way too obvious, and it's just like it's also like what do we want at this point? I feel like society has not decided what we want yet.
I see what you mean. I think like we want change, but we want change in a way that's like realistic, I guess. Like we want change in a way that's not like the easy, okay, let's have a girl power scene so that we can check that off. What irks people is when it's like a very obvious ploy, when you can like see through the reason why this situation is happening. And that's most of the time because they're not putting the effort into making it a real part of the movie. They're just like using it as a check the box activity.
It's interesting because I mean, based on our discussion, I just feel like reboots, they're never gonna be as big as like a hit.
And I just almost want them to stop. We've had enough. The reboot era is ending. Over. It's done. We want new stuff. We're all, in a way, rebooting things anyway when we rewatch. The rewatch era is in, so the reboot era has to be out.
Thanks so much for listening. You can follow us on all social media at Clown Vibes Podcast or email us at clownvibespodcast@gmail.com.
And if you like our show and want to support us, please like, subscribe, and give us a rating and review. That's it for today. Bye, clowns.
Bye, clowns.